loves, and welcome to today's video. In a rare turn of events, it is a Sunday and I have nothing to do today. So I'm a bit behind on my reading goal. Let's spend an entire day reading as much as we can. The first book I'm gonna try and read today is Deadlocked by Charlaine Harris. This is the 12th Sookie Stackhouse book, the second last one in the series. I am so excited to finally wrap this series up. I've been working on reading these for way too long at this point. Let's start with this and see how it goes. Hour one complete, and I read the first two chapters of Deadlocked, which is about 60 pages. In chapter one, Sookie was at like a fairy strip club for someone's bachelorette party, and a lot of time was spent on that for some reason. And then in chapter two, nothing really happened either. I think the main plot of this one is going to be about the repercussions of the assassination plot that happened in the previous one. We're 60 pages in and there doesn't really seem to be anything plot worthy other than Sookie like going to work, going to the strip club, talking to her family. So we'll see what happens once we actually get into some plot. Hour 2 update. I am now 130 pages into Deadlocked, which is the start of chapter 6. So we have gotten to the crux of what the plot is. In the last book, there was an assassination of a ranking vampire, and the king has come to investigate that. While they are at Eric's mansion having a party, police show up because there is a dead body on the lawn. And this was a human that Eric had been feeding on earlier in the day, so he's obviously suspect numero uno. So they are trying to figure out what actually happened to this girl because she was alive when she left Eric. Interested to see how that goes. It has kind of become a little bit of a cliche plot at this point where it's like, woman dies, soups are blamed. How do they find out who actually did it and end up with the soups not getting blamed? We're 12 books into this, and that's been the plot of so many of the books so far that it's getting a little cliched at this point. Hopefully they find a way to keep this one interesting, but I am not too hopeful at this point. From what I've heard, the series doesn't end very well, and this is the penultimate. So we're 230 pages in, and I'm making breakfast and we'll get back to it. I have now been reading for 4 hours and I am 220 pages into Deadlock. Kind of introduced a secondary plot here where Sookie has this like fairy artifact that no one else knows she has, and she doesn't want other people to know she has because she's worried that the power of this artifact would be really dangerous to be in anyone else's hands. She had donated a bunch of furniture to a antique store in the last book, and someone like stole all the furniture that she had donated. So she's assuming that someone knows she has this artifact and is searching for it. That's kind of been introduced as a secondary plot. We're still investigating who could have killed this girl that Eric was drinking. Current money is on Jana Lynn, who is Sookie's boss's girlfriend, who like assumes that Sookie is in love with Sam and is kind of a bitch about it. That's what's going on there. So far, this isn't one of the best Sookie Stackhouse books. We'll see what happens in the climax because I have like 120 pages left, so probably finish this in the next 2 hours. So far, not one of my favorites. Like I said, the whole like, oh, someone turned up dead and the vampires are blamed, kind of repetitive at this point. The only thing that would make it more repetitive is if Jason was blamed, but he's happily engaged now. As I've said before about these books, it's not like I'm expecting high literature. They're palette cleansers, they're a soft mystery with supernatural elements. We'll see how I feel once I finish that. Ultimate goal was to get 3 books done today. I'm thinking I might get like 2 and a bit at most. This is going a little bit slower than I thought it would. It's only 11 a.m., so I still have a lot of daylight to start reading, continue reading, all of those good things. So I finished Deadlocked. I'm gonna save rating it for the end of the video because I want to get as many pages read today as I possibly can. So 340 pages in 6-ish hours. It's a little past the 6-hour mark. That's one book done. The 2 plot lines kind of ended up converging and being related to each other, and when I tell you that I had absolutely no surprise at all when what happened. Only one book left in the series. It is really losing steam. That's what the reviews say, and I have to agree. We're getting real repetitive. We're getting real off track because what do you mean there was no vampire fucking like at all in this book? What does Charlene think people are reading these books for? One more book left in this series, and then I'm gonna rewatch True Blood because honestly at this point I like the True Blood plot better than I liked this plot. So that is done. I have a couple options for what I could read next. I have More Stories Not for the Nervous, because this one is like less than 200 pages, so if I wanted to guarantee finishing a second book, this would be the choice. I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. This is like the book I have checked out from the library right now, so this would be the logical, like, full-length novel choice, but I have the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson, and I just really want to read this. So, well, either of these two would be the logical next choice. I'm choosing the Frugal Wizard's Guide, Handbook, whatever. And if I finish that one, I'll try and read this one as well, and this one I'll just start tomorrow, I guess. I have started like the first 10 pages of this the other day when I actually had bought it, and then I had other library books I had to prioritize. So this is about a man who wakes up in medieval England with absolutely no memory of who he is, how he got there, and the only thing he has is a handbook for wizards surviving medieval England, so he has to kind of piece together who he is, what he's doing there, and try and survive. I absolutely love Trust of the Emerald Sea. I love Delantris, and I don't have the time right now to commit to starting Mistborn because the first one is like excess of 500 pages and I'm already like 7 books behind on my reading goal, so we're trying to keep it a little bit brief. So I'm gonna read this one next and I will let you know how it goes. It's been about an hour and I hit page 78, which is the end of part 1 of this book. So our main character has been dropped into medieval England with this book and the pages are scattered everywhere and he's trying to figure out what's happening. So far he's figured out that there are these 2 men who are also like not from medieval England who are searching for him, and they're both members of a cartel. And he's also figured out what his name is, which is John West, and he's a cop. And then the cartel members kidnap this boy who's like the brother of like the first person basically John talked to. I think is some kind of leader's son. I'm a little confused about the hierarchical system here. Hopefully if I keep reading, I'll able to latch onto that a bit more. The sun has come out, so I'm gonna go on my balcony and read for a little bit and get some fresh air. I did an obstacle race yesterday and I am very sore, so that's about as much action as I feel like getting today is walking to my balcony. I will give you an update maybe at the end of part 2 or 3, depending how much has happened then. So just finished part 2 of Frugal Wizard's Handbook, and it was significantly longer than part 1, so I didn't also do part 3. So I am on like 210. So in part 2, the main character is like pretending to be a wizard to track down the like kidnapped boy. And while they're like on the way, he finds out that this specific dimension that he's in, because the Frugal Wizard's Handbook is like you can basically choose an alternate dimension that's like medieval adjacent and it's yours. And the one he's in specifically is based very heavily on like Nordic mythology. So like Odin and Loki and Freya, except they're like slightly different names for all of those things. He fights off some Vikings by pretending to be magic, but then like he draws a rune and it actually bursts into flames, and he's like, hold on a second, I'm like from an advanced civilization, but I'm not actually a wizard. What's going on here? So then they continue on their journey, and he does end up saving the kidnapped child, and that is just where this chapter ends. But turns out he's not a cop. He dropped out of cop college to become a scam artist, basically, because he is not as apt at things as he maybe thought he was before he regained his memory. Also, he does art, and art is like something these people are like, whoa, you captured my soul. Maybe not in the like stoner voice. I don't know where that came from. I am enjoying it so far. It's not quite as good as Tress yet, so I'm like trying to keep my expectations manageable, because clearly I've been like very in my Brandon Sanderson era. Tress and Elantris, both of them were 5 stars for me. So I know that Brandon Sanderson is not going to have like everything he writes be a 5-star. So I'm trying to be fair to this one of like, it doesn't quite live up to those ones, but does that mean like it's bad? No. It's a bit more written like a quirky satire than an epic fantasy so far. Clearly we're dealing with like dimensional portals and parallel universes, so it's leaning a bit more sci-fi than fantasy, despite being in medieval England, which is, you know, the stereotypical fantasy thing. It's 4 p.m. I've been reading since like 7 a.m. I have like 140 pages left, so I'm hoping I can finish this up by 7 p.m. and that makes it 12 hours of reading, and then I can rest my brain, because this has been a lot of reading today, which is what I needed. I've been so crazy busy this month, and this week is also going to be crazy busy again, so I did kind of need a reading catch-up day. Let's finish this up, hopefully, and then maybe read some graphic novels. That's still reading, though. Watch True Blood. I will probably just end up watching True Blood. I finished the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson, and all I can say is, Brandon, you've done it again. I don't think this is a 5. I still have to figure out my actual ratings, but I know at least one of my compile ratings is not going to be a 5. So it's not a 5, but it's going to be pretty damn close. All the way till like maybe here, I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this one. And then he just pulls it together in that last little bit. And Brandon, this is why you are a master of your craft. And also, I didn't mention earlier that there are like photos throughout, and my favorite happens to be this one with like Banana Cthulhu. This was good. It's definitely more science fiction, and from reading the like afterword, postscript, whatever, this is technically not in the Cosmere universe. It is more science fiction than fantasy, which is intentional. I still really enjoyed it. The characters I didn't connect to as much as I did with the other 2 Brandon Sandersons. That's the one that's getting less than a 5, but it still probably would be a 4, because the main character, John Runian, he goes by a few different names depending on who's talking to him, I was not liking him. He starts the book having amnesia, and he like has to piece together who he is from like what he starts remembering. So at one time he thinks he's a cop because he like remembers talking to his partner, and then it turns out his best friend's a cop. He's not a cop, and like, I don't know. I wasn't connecting with him very well for like most of the book, but then he brings it back in the end. He redeems himself in like the last 30 pages. That's that. I'm done reading for the day. I have read for over 11 hours straight. I have finished 2 books, so I'm calling it 366 and 340. So 706 pages I've read today. I'm still like 5 books behind on my reading goal, even having done this today. I'm gonna let my brain rest so I can digest what I read, decide what I'm rating these, and I will give you my final thoughts later. All right, we are refreshed. We are ready to rate. Starting with Deadlocked by Charlaine Harris. Characters are going to get a 3. There is not really anyone new introduced in here, and I don't know. I'm just not connecting to them as much as I used to, so it gets a 3. They're fine. Atmosphere, also going to get a 3. We didn't really go to any unique locales in this one. It was basically like Sookie's house, Merlotte's, Fangtasia. Did we even go to Fangtasia? I don't even think we went to Fangtasia. Eric's house, like there was nothing unique about the atmosphere in this one. It was just a series of places we've been already. 3. Writing style, 3. It's, again, nothing wrong with the writing, but nothing that stands out as being amazing, so 3 for that as well. I'm gonna give this a 3 for plot. Like I mentioned, the plot's getting a bit repetitive, but you know, I was kind of interested to see who killed this girl, and then also who was like hunting after Sookie for her artifact. There was like a singular interesting thing at the climax that really brought that up. Otherwise it probably would have gotten a 2 for being repetitive. I will give credit where credit is due for like the one interesting scene at the end, which pulls this up to a 3. But intrigue is gonna get a 2 because there were like 2 plot lines, and Charlaine loves to do this where she has 2 plot lines where like you think that they're completely different and then oh no, they're actually interconnected and related. So you're not surprised anymore when the plot ends up being interconnected and related. I was more spending the time like, okay, how are we bringing these 2 things together? And the dead body, the dead girl on the lawn that Eric was drinking of, I'm pretty sure I knew, like, almost immediately who was gonna get blamed for that just based on which characters we had actually already seen at the beginning of the book. And the second plot I also managed to put together pretty quickly because of a character who was suspiciously absent for most of the book. I was like, okay, get to this reveal. I already know what's happening, and was not surprised when that happened. So 2 for intrigue. Logic, relationships, I'm gonna give a 2 as well. The person who was responsible for the dead body, their motivation was pretty flimsy. Everybody is just jealous of Sookie because she is the most magical, not really human in the entire world. All the men want to sleep with her, all the women hate her because the men want to sleep with her, and even sometimes some of the women want to sleep with her. And Jesus Christ, why are so many people willing to kill other people over fucking Sookie? I know she smells good, I guess, but I didn't understand that. I don't think the relationship was built up enough for that to have been a logical choice. So 2 for logic and relationships. Enjoyment, I'm gonna give a 3. Like, they're palette cleansers, they're fine. It's not like I resent the time I spent doing it, but it's not like I would go out of my way to reread this again. That puts the average of this one at a 2.75. So that is my rating. Deadlocked, 2.75. I think one of the lowest rated ones in this series for me, and maybe it's good that there's only one left. And now, the Frugal Wizard's Handbooks for Surviving Medieval England. Sounds like a Fall Out Boy song for how wordy that title is, but by Brandon Sanderson. We will start with the characters, which I think I already mentioned. I'm giving a 4. Compared to Tress of the Emerald Sea and compared to Elantris, I didn't connect with the characters in this one as much. It took me a while to figure out what the dynamic was there, and particularly the protagonist, I just was not a big fan of until you brought it back in the very end. You redeemed those characters, and that brought it kind of up to a 4. Not gonna get a 5 this time, Brandon, I'm sorry, but we still have a lot of books to go through to earn you some more 5s. I don't know why I'm talking like Brandon Sanderson is going to watch this video. If you are, hello. Atmosphere. I'm gonna give it a 5 for atmosphere. I did like the world building here, so there's a few different elements of the world building. There is the medieval England part where it is a parallel dimension, so it is slightly different than our medieval England. And this one just happened to be based on Norse mythology, but like kind of changed. So it was like Woden instead of Odin and all of that stuff. I thought that was really clever and really interesting to do like a parallel history, but at the same time, because it's dimensional, it is also science fiction building. Throughout the book, there are excerpts of the handbook, which really helps build out the world that we don't get to see, which is the parallel world where our main character came from and has that advanced technology. And I thought that was really interesting to build the atmosphere, not just of the setting where we are, but the setting where we aren't. 5 for that. Writing style, Brandon's gonna get a 5. I cannot find fault within his writing style. It's quippy, it's fun, it's easy. He has, again, those little guide sections, which were really interesting to read and kind of switches up the style of writing. So a 5 for writing style for me. Plot, how do I feel about the plot? I think I'm gonna give the plot a 4. I think that the pacing at the beginning was a little bit slow. Because I wasn't connected to the characters, I maybe wasn't as invested at that point of like the kidnapped boy. I don't care. I guess I should care because he's a boy and he's kidnapped, but I didn't really know his sister enough yet to have any really emotional stake in him being saved. And then the plot relating to John, though, with him losing his memory and trying to piece together who he used to be while also trying to find his way in this new exotic place. I thought that was pretty good. So it's gonna get a 4 for plot. 5 for intrigue. I was really interested to see how this was gonna play out, why John was here, who these cartel members were, what was going on with all of both the medieval England stuff as well as the cartel from the future, and I did enjoy that, so that is going to get a 5. Logic relationships, I'm going to give a 4. In terms of logic, very well done. I did enjoy, again, that world building element. I thought was very logically built up. How these parallel dimensions work is that you can't travel in time, you can only travel in place. So to travel to medieval England, you have to find a parallel world where their time span of however million years they've been on Earth, they have only reached that technological plateau. So I did find that logic really interesting and really added to have limitations on it. I will say that there's a romantic subplot here that I don't feel got built up enough for me to find it believable that those two characters end up together at the end. So that is why it gets a 4 for me. Enjoyment though, 5. I had fun with this. I did really enjoy it. I enjoy his writing style. I enjoyed like frequently asked questions and the pictures. It was just overall really enjoyable to read. So that is going to bring the average of this book at a 4.57. So we're gonna round down to a 4.5. So the lowest rating I've given a Brandon Sanderson, this being my 3rd, but still probably amongst the highest ratings I've given out this year. Brandon Sanderson's still basically on a roll with me, even if he got his first not a 5. That is the wrap up for these 2 books and my lazy Sunday, spending 11 hours straight reading. If you made it to the end of this video, put a wizard emoji in the comments for the Frugal Wizard's Handbook. Maybe once I will get that on my first try. If you enjoyed, like and consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.